What's going on, all you hep cats and dirty dogs? Tonight, you and I are sitting down and we're watching Return of the Living Dead from 1985. Alright, gang. I hope you got your snacks ready. I hope you got your comfy pants on. Pow! Because it's time for our feature presentation. Real events. Return of the Living Dead. Real events. Alright. Straight out the gate, we meet Frank and Freddie. It's Freddie's first day on the job at the You Need a Medical Supply warehouse, and I honestly love how tickled Frank seems just to have another coworker to talk to.
Jesus. Come on, kid.
The on-screen chemistry with these two is the best. It's this beautiful combination of a very polished, veteran actor and a relatively inexperienced, raw, young actor. They're the perfect duo to carry this movie.
Hey, these things don't leak, do they?
Leak? Hell no. These things were made by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers.
And they're dead. So while Frank and Freddie are busy totally being dead, that big zombie fart is getting up into the vents and starting to zombify all the medical specimens. And now that that's going on, let's tiptoe through the tulips to the cemetery across the street where Freddie's girlfriend Tina and their gang of weirdo friends are hanging out waiting for Freddie to get off work so they can party! I don't know about you guys, but I'm starting to worry a little bit about that whole cemetery being right next door to the warehouse that's filling up with zombie farts. Feels like... I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure it'll be fine.
Do you ever fantasize about being killed?
Never.
Do you ever wonder about all the different ways of dying? You know, violently? And wonder, like, what would be the most horrible way to die?
Try not to think about dying too much.
Anyway, so they're just killing time, hanging out, being punks, you know, dancing naked on graves. I mean, to be fair, this is like pre-Facebook world. You know, you don't got your Candy Crushes and your Angry Birds and your Twitters and whatnots to keep yourself occupied. What were you supposed to do? You know, what were you supposed to do? All of us would have, sooner or later, stripped naked and danced on a grave. That's what people did back then. That was common. You saw that. You went to the cemetery to, like, you know, put a rose on your grandmother's grave. You'd see it everywhere. It was constant back in the 80s. A crazy time. It was a crazy time. None of that happened.
Are you okay, kid? I don't know. I don't feel so good.
Hey, Frank and Freddie are alive! Or are they? We'll find out. Stay tuned. So Frank and Freddie look like death warmed over, and they're horrified to discover that every dead thing in the warehouse is apparently now up and kicking. Dissected dogs, pinned butterflies, not to mention an incredibly pissed off cadaver in the freezer. Oh boy.
Bert, Frank, we have a little problem.
Okay, now Frank has pulled his boss, Bert, into the situation. And Bert, I would say understandably, is pissed. Zombies are bad for business. Thankfully, Bert's the kind of guy that can take care of business. TCB, baby! Oh, peanut butter banana, baby! Elvis. Keep watching the movie.
Have it, Ben, Frank! Hold it!
Alright, pause. We gotta talk about rules in Return of the Living Dead. Zombie rules are a little different in this movie, and this is our first crucial zombie rule. headshots do not kill these zombies. And what do you do when a zombie cannot be killed by a headshot? Well, as I see it, there is only one solution, and that is to hack that zombie up into easy-to-transport pieces, sneak it over to the funeral home next door, and bribe Ernie the Mortician to incinerate it until there's nothing left.
Is that hard gone, Ernie?
It's all burned up.
Are you sure?
Right up the chimney.
God damn, so relieved. We're home free, Frank. We got it made. You saved our ass, buddy boy. And I owe you one. God damn!
All right, done and done. No more zombies. Everything worked out great. Or I guess that would have worked had the smoke coming out of the crematorium not gone up into the clouds, turned into acid rain, which then is now soaking the cemetery. Yeah, that is not good.
Freddie?
Oh yeah! I almost forgot during all of that zombie incinerator hijinks that Tina went looking for Freddie and found the zombie from the fart barrel instead. And pause. We gotta talk about another rule. Did you catch that zombie was talking? Yeah. In Return of the Living Dead, the zombies are smart. Keep that in mind. Oh, this is when the shit really starts hitting the fan. Our gang of weirdos gets separated, and sadly, our favorite red-headed punk, the butt that launched 1,000 boners, bites the big one. Or should I say, the big one bit her. I knew that joke sucked. I left it in anyway. Because I'm a real sack of shit. So while things are getting real in the cemetery, Frank and Freddie are taking a turn for the worst. Yeah, because they've been dead since the gas hit them. Spoiler alert. Sorry, the movie acts like this is going to be a big surprise, but we got it. We figured it out. Thanks, though. And our brave and handsome paramedics, just here doing their jobs, get chomped for their troubles.
Jerry?
Now, our funeral home group and some of our cemetery punks are banding together to fortify the funeral home. Sadly, not without casualties. Rip in peace, scuzz. And now we come to one of my favorite scenes in this movie, and maybe just one of my favorite scenes in any zombie movie. The zombie interrogation scene.
Man, you sure that thing's tied good?
You can hear me.
Yes.
This scene is all different kinds of creepy. I love it. It's awesome. But more than just the creepiness, this scene answers a question that most zombie movies don't even bother asking. It's a huge revelation in zombie lore, and that's why? Why do zombies feed? Why do they eat our brains? Why do they tear us apart?
Why do you eat people?
The pain.
What about the pain?
The pain of being dead.
Hurts to be dead. Eating brains. How does that make you feel?
It makes the pain go away.
After their chit-chat with Sally McBrainbiter, people start putting two and two together and realize that Frank and Freddie are definitely zombies, and sooner or later, they're gonna get that brain crave. So they lock them up in the oh-so-easily escapable chapel room of the funeral home, instead of just throwing them outside, I guess. Tina decides to stay with Freddie, because she's dumb. And yes, finally, they go full zombie.
And one thing only that can leave this world with suffering.
What, Freddie? What?
Alive.
So while Freddie is failing at eating brains, but succeeding at getting acid thrown in his eyes, our dear sweet zombie Frank does the noble thing and climbs into the incinerator. There really are too many little character details in this movie to mention that make it special, but this is a big one that I wanted to point out. I can't stress enough how much I love sweet zombie Frank fighting that urge, fighting the brain crave that he now has, fighting this monster that he's become long enough to throw himself into the incinerator. This movie gets a lot of attention, I think, for sort of the 80s vibe and the gore, you know, the brains, the blood, the butts, the boobs. It's got all those great elements, but it's these little heartfelt bits of character business that I think make it more, and I think is the reason why people connect to this movie a little deeper than they probably should.
I got a man down.
Ah, Jesus. Hold it right there! Razor, I'll blow your fucking brains out!
So now, the name of the game is getting the hell out of this nightmare. Bert and Spider get their hands on the cop's squad car. Unfortunately, they find escape is quite impossible, and only make it as far as the medical warehouse. So basically, they're just effed. Effed in the A.
We've got a bad situation here. We've got officers down. We have just witnessed ground units attack. Repeat, attack.
Helicopter!
Attention. Attention. This is the police. This area is under police blockade.
With no other options, Bert finally has no choice but to call the number on the side of the zombie barrels. You know, like that thing that he should have done right away. Like, right away.
What are they doing, man?
Hang on a second, would you? Yeah. Oh, it's weird. These people seem to say they've been waiting for this to happen. Apparently they got some sort of contingency plan to deal with it. Huh?
Well, that's great.
See, the military has a plan, no problem. They're saved. That's right, our tale of woe ends with the military vaporizing everyone and everything in 20 square blocks. Alright, so I have very few complaints about Return of the Living Dead. It's one of my favorite horror movies of all time. But this ending, just blowing everybody up at the end. For one thing, it feels really, really abrupt. It comes out of nowhere. We still kind of feel like we're in the middle of the story, and we just get bombed. So from a story standpoint, it bugs me quite a bit. Also, I really, really wish at least a couple of these characters had actually made it out. So even if it was like in the middle of the movie, maybe a couple people made it to a car and took off, at least like something. It's the one big issue I have with it. Return of the Living Dead really does have everything. Like I said before, it's easy to spot the blood and the guts and the gore and the butts and the boobs and all of the, like, the 80s, you know, just that it's barfing 80s, you know, all over the place. All of that super fun midnight movie stuff. But it's also mixed with, like I said, those great characters, but it also has a really solid story structure for people like me who like to dissect movies on that sort of like the craft of them. Within 10 minutes, of the beginning of the movie, we've met our main characters, we've established like some of the, at least like our opening rules of what's going on. There are zombies at the 10-minute mark. There are zombies. And then things just ratchet up from there, and we learn a new rule, like here and there as we go, and the tension and the stress and the threat just keeps cranking up and up and up. Aside from the abrupt ending, the writing is great. And another thing I really want to point out is it's very funny, but it's not written to be a comedy. It's not written to be like a comedy horror. It's written to be a horror. And it's through, I think, almost like honesty that it gets funny, because it's hard in like these super, I don't know how to describe it. But I think in real life, in a stressful situation, sometimes, you know, like you sort of need that release of something to laugh at. And what's funny in this movie isn't like overtly comedic, but it's there for us to have like this little bit of release from kind of the horrors of the situation. But just all in all, these are all ingredients that I don't think you can point to another movie and that has all of these ingredients that in the amounts that it does. Because I think Night of the Comet is a movie that is on a par with this, except for that it doesn't exploit these elements the way Return of the Living Dead does. Return of the Living Dead is a midnight movie, like a gory, booby midnight movie, and has all of these great elements. Night of the Comet is like, it holds all of those elements at bay, like where it's just about to release them and then doesn't. Return of the Living Dead is just like making a snow angel in all of these exploitation elements. And I don't think you can point at a movie that revels in what it is as much as this does, and does it as successfully as it does. I could watch Return of the Living Dead every day for the rest of my life, and I don't think I would get sick of it. There's so many different ways to enjoy it, and there's so many little things going on. It's not just worth a watch, it's worth many watches. So definitely, if you have seen Return of the Living Dead, which I assume you have if you're watching this movie, watch it again. It's time to watch it again. And if by some chance you're someone who's never seen it, holy cow, go see it. I mean, don't go see it, go get it, and then go home and see it. And like, call a few friends over. Watch it with a few people. I don't know what else to say. So I guess I will just catch all of you alley cats and dirty dogs on the flip side. Bye-bye, everybody.